G'day, just a video on GME from end of day data, the 29th of January. We've been digging deep trying to find out where the liquidity is and what's been going on with GameStop. A couple of sort of complicating things are that GameStop, as I pointed out in a tweet yesterday, tends to follow sorry, I'm not trying to get too many lines on the chart. Tends to follow and make moves based on the compression of either Vanna or Gamma and their release, or Vanna is, the release of Vega, or when we get a big release, or we could start to get a blow off in Gamma and tightening in the options market. We get this dispersion into the, just let me turn these things off so I can't see them. We tend to get compression of vol because of zero DTEs, and so that's increased over the last few years. So the different things we're looking at here is the CBO dispersion index, and you'll tend to find that the dispersion index really shows you that we get this when it's very high and it's being dispersed. That's because we've got a volatility event happening. And then we have periods like we've had here in the election where we've had high volatility, which is slowly starting to peter out. We've got something very interesting here. We've got a very high peak in dispersion, and don't know whether it's got to do with this NVIDIA event. Timing's the same, but don't know quite. It seems to have been doing something very funny here with GME, and I'm still trying to work it out. But we're just having a quick look at the liquidity here. We can see that at about the same, this bit of support here, the same sort of price level, which is around the 27.50 mark. We can see last time it was here, the liquidity was up quite high, and since then the liquidity has fallen down. And when we see liquidity fall down like this into tighter liquidity or illiquidity, where it falls down, we get a reaction. So we have reactionary liquidity. So it goes tight, we get a reactionary event from it. As opposed to this sort of event here, some of this is reactionary, but this one here is a causal event. So this liquidity here is from the gaming, this to a certain degree, from the gaming of options and buying the underlying and making the market very illiquid or very tight. We then have this causal liquidity, which is a different, you drop, this is dropping down into a place of more of tighter liquidity as the price goes down, trying to find its base. That's a tighter place. There's less people willing to sell. Where when you go up, we loosen liquidity up here. It becomes very loose again. This is a reactional liquidity. The price has come very high. There's no more buyers up there. It's very loose, and so the price drops back down. So they sort of mirror each other, but we have to think about liquidity in more than one dimension, and that's one of the difficult things to look at it. But we can see here that at the moment, if we take this as an average piece of liquidity, somewhere around this line here, we're still tighter. So GME is still in the game. What we need to happen here with GME is we need this to pull down, just like these VIX have pulled down here, and we've seen the reaction with the rest of the stock market going the other way. Whatever this event here is seems to be holding down GME. Now, there's something to do with the dispersion, still remaining high. Here it's remained high all through these periods. It's remained high, and you can see that it's tended to mirror this irregular liquidity here. We can see that the DSPX, the dispersion index, seems to be following it, but somewhere here it's gone its own ways and produced this very large spread. Which spread is going to close faster? Is this going to become, is this going to go back up to, and this is a liquid state, is it going to go back up to a very liquid state? Or is it going to tighten its liquidity up, and is this going to head down as this turns around? So there's a possibility that it'll rise reasonably quickly. The things that we really need is we need a Vanna event, or we need the VIX dropping, or we need a gamma compression, and that, if we went and had a quick look over on this screen here, and if we wanted to see a gamma event, if we're looking at dates, at the moment the gamma is very low, so we're not having a compression problem with volatility here that we might have seen, that we saw here. This was starting to come up in compression. This is the Nasdaq, so if I just went through the S&P 500 and looked at the times, I mean, the large event that we had was April going through into May. So if we just look at April going through into May, this was the start of the event here. We've had a gamma compression quite quickly, and this is when it's really started to hit off, is this gamma event here. It's then tightened through and then bounced around again, and then we've had some little groups of events here, but we've now had this gamma drop out. The gamma is the grey here. This gamma has dropped out, and if you look at where it's dropped out at about the same time as we aren't seeing a reaction in GME. If we just have a quick look at where GME is, I might as well load. Sorry, you can see I have too many screens open at the same time. We'll look at it in two different ways. We can see here in the very short dated hedging, the short dated hedging is over. This is the 7 day. There's just nothing in there. It's slowly been pulling back, so we know that we're at the bottom. We haven't seen much price reaction to anything. It's been sitting around. We've had a build in the buy signal, which means that we are having buying in this low gamma period, and we can see up here in the DPI that it's been buying. And this is where we can see these builds that we could see in that liquidity. This is the DPI dart pull interest. So this is buying that's happening in the OTC market. That tightening has caused this effect, and now we haven't yet seen that dissipate. But what we do know is that we're back to a level of much better liquidity. I'll just change back to the other screen, and then I'll get on to some other stocks. We are, if we take this as being the, oh, I've got the wrong one there. If we take this as being the correct way to look at liquidity, that it is still tight. It's still, for the same price around this 27.50, it is still lower. So it's still got, it's still tighter. So it's still got some room to move until we find an event. But we've got to find that event, and that event now could be a hiring of the gamma, but we haven't seen, although the index has gone back up, or the index has gone back up, we have not seen gamma rise. That means we're not getting a compression. I don't know why it's not so volatile at the moment. We're seeing some volatility in the VIX, but we're not seeing a great deal of volatility in the markets. The markets are, have been up and down. Maybe we have seen volatility, and I've got used to looking at it. But we need either to see a pullback in the volatility, or we need a compression in some gamma before we're going to start to see this move away with some strength. I would think that we probably need a little bit of a filling event. This needs to be re-topped up. We had a filling event here. There's no price discovery here, so this here is irregular liquidity, and so we know that this is again a little irregular activity here and a little bit more irregular liquidity activity there. But here we're still very high. There's nothing really untoward. We need a little bit more pressure on that. Let's just have a quick look at the other things that I think are quite interesting at the moment. Get rid of these just so we can see where these are. This is an interesting one. Jake, who everyone seems to follow on Twitter, who is seems to do a great thing. Jake, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with people's names. Jake's name is, oh, I mustn't have him turned on. he loves this one, that sometimes it's going to go off, and it has fallen down a long way, but we can see it's fallen into, this is irregular illiquidity here. This is not just reactional. There's been quite a large build here. If we quickly go across and see what it says, I spelled that right. No, nothing like dyslexia. It's not a very. I don't think it's a very optionable. Oh no, it's got some options on it. It's got a couple 100,000 options on it. We can see during this price fall here that we've had several builds of. Just clear some of this off so I can see what I'm doing. We've had several builds of DPI here. This was a split. And now we're having this gamma building. And that's very interesting because there's not a lot of price discovery, but we've got gamma building there. So there's underlying positions that are being filled up here. This DPI is at its lowest point is at 47. Neutral's about 35 in DPI. I know it's rated out of 1 to 100, and you'd think that in percentage terms that would be 50, but it isn't. The back testing done by Matt Zambito from Squeeze Metrics comes out at about 35%. So here we can see a big building event and a jump. Again, here we've seen this this raising and quite constant IV, showing us that we've got a tightening event happening there. So we've definitely got something happening there. We'll just go back and quickly look at it at the screen. I think it's a very interesting play for us to have a look at. I will do some more work on it behind the scenes. Another little interesting one that I spotted, probably not as interesting as Beyond Meat here. We can see we've got very irregular liquidity. Yes, this here is a drop into illiquidity, but it's really been building over a period of time. We haven't had many splits. At some stage we've got to get some reaction out of that. You can see here as it's dropped into here, we've had reactional liquidity, and we've had a reaction, and it's obviously there's been some causation in there too. There's been some fuel added to the fire, and then it's slowly dissipated out, and then it's dropped down. I would have thought this drop down here is we're going to get some reaction out of that pretty soon, and it's probably worth watching. This is, I think, the most interesting of the ones out there at the moment, just because we've seen what's happened before with nowhere near the amount of illiquidity. We had a split here. We have actually had another split there. So I suppose I want to fix that. So let's just go a little bit closer in here on what's happening currently. And currently in the 30-minute, we're seeing these quite nice repetition of what we saw leading into this last event here. We can see that we've had a little bit of reactional liquidity here, and it's bounced back and the price has gone back up, and then it's been charging, and we can see it here just dropping down until we get down to this point here where we see irregular liquidity. So it is happening at a much greater rate than other days in that given week, within the way that we're measuring irregular liquidity, and this is what's then happened. Look, we did have a charge event there. I think this is probably more reactional. I'm not certain. Could have been part of this building process here. But here again we've seen it, and we saw a bit of a reaction from it yesterday, and it looks like it's building a little bit again today. But I think this is a very interesting candidate for jumping back off. The other players that I've got on my radar at the moment, I've got an active position in that. I like this. I like the technicals on this. Don't know why. I just like that. I think that's a very pretty technical. I think that there's a lot of, really, for where it is, this is a real build here in illiquidity. We've dropped into it, and then it's held it as it started to rise. It hasn't broken this curve here yet, and it's holding this very steep, this very irregular uh, tight liquidity, illiquidity. I try to use the word tight and loose because when speaking quickly, illiquidity and liquidity can get mixed up. So this is tight liquidity down here, and this hasn't fallen into tight liquidity. This is causation, causality liquidity. It is being caused by the buying of the underlying or the buying of options, and a lot of TA people would like this straight away. They would see this triangle, this flag here, and at some stage this is going to break, and I think that it's worth staying in for a little while longer. I think that we've had a look. Novax has been very good. It's got back up here. We could see that it dropped down and it had a bit of reactional liquidity, but this has been, maybe this was the first bit. The reactional liquidity was here, and then this has been a build. It's dropped down into it to help the tightening. We're not talking a huge price difference, but then again we've had this reactional liquidity here, and it's holding at the moment at about the same liquidity level. So I don't know if it's going to take off. It's an interesting one. Alright, I hope that I haven't bored you with my little, was it BB then also? Oh, BB looks great as well. I was looking at this earlier. Really, if we look at the price here, we were at a similar level. We were very liquid, so you can see this has got some real yards in it to go. If you're looking for something, if there's a break into BlackBerry here, this would be a great one to have a look at, because the liquidity levels are much tighter than they were at the same price. So we've had a real build over this. Let's just have a quick look at this on and see what we've had happen with the DPI and BB BlackBerry. Oh, come on. Sorry, silly old. I'm sorry, I'm switching between light and dark screens. But I hope that you can hear me and we're getting in there. So this is, I think this, just judging by, this is a real gamma play. Probably because these gamma ladders work so well with few price levels. They're just easy to work down at low prices. But we can see here we've had a bit of a build here, but then we've had these consistent builds here, and we can see the gamma's really built up again, and then we've had another consistent build, and then when we've had this recent little charge here, we've got another good build in it, and that is a really interesting. Maybe it's just going up with the price now. Yeah, maybe it's just going up with the price, the DPI, but that being said, it's holding its illiquidity very well, and I think that if you got an opportunity to get into this, I know it's a rising flag. Maybe if it drops back, it tightens up again. One of our TA experts Gavin can help us with what's going to happen here. All right, I hope that I haven't bored you. I'm going to try and do this production a couple of times a week on the meme stock watch. And every now and then I'll put one up on the web so people can see what we're going to be discussing, and we'll discuss a lot more about these liquidity sentiment indicators and how we use the different ones and how they work. Just it's sped up my ability to get around these and talk about them a lot. And I hope that you're understanding some of my language about them. And I hope you have a good Thursday's training, sorry. It's the end of a long week. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.